Two summers ago, we were on our way home from an out-of-town day trip for my son's birthday party. We went to a water park and decided to go to dinner in this really small town after getting slightly lost due to Google Maps' crappy directions. After dinner, we noticed across the street was a county fair, so we checked it out for fun. It was getting dark and the fair was nearly over, but we caught a tractor pull that was about to begin. We'd never been on one, so we thought it might be a fun way to top off the birthday trip. We sat on the bleachers and watched for a while. There were a lot of families there watching, and also some drunk people as well. I didn't think anything of it. I had my 16-year-old son with me and a good friend of mine who was a strong guy, so I felt safe. We decided to leave the fair before the event was over, so as to not be on the road that night with the drunks. We walked back to the restaurant, which was now closed, and got into my car and set off for home. Backtracking using Google Maps directions, we got on the road that I recognized would get us back home. I noticed that as soon as we pulled out of the restaurant, there was a car behind us. The only other car on the road, as most of the town's inhabitants were most likely at the fair or at home. The car followed us onto the road we took to get home, which I found odd because it was a desolate back, hilly road with a wooded area on either side. I thought maybe they too were from out of town and were using the same cut across to get to the interstate, as it was summer and many people were on road trips. I still felt uneasy about it, but decided just to get off this podunk road and onto the interstate as soon as possible. As we were driving on this hilly back road, it was completely dark outside, so I drove easy for fear of deer running out in front of us. The car stayed right behind me. I slowed way down, hoping he would be annoyed enough to pass me for going slow. Instead, he drove right up on me, tailgating me. I could see that it was only one person in this car, and the windows were tinted. I dared to speed up, wanting to get onto the main road or intersection as soon as I could. He stayed right up behind me, going as fast or as slow as I was, not bothering to get off my bumper. I knew without a doubt we were being harassed now. I was starting to get a little scared. I had my son in the back seat. It was his birthday. This was unfair, and I kicked myself for going to the tractor pull. Of course I couldn't have predicted this craziness, but still. After what seemed like ages, we got into the interstate. I had hoped it was just a local jerk who wanted to scare some city folks, but I somehow knew it wasn't that simple. As I feared, he followed us on the interstate. Even on the interstate, he tailgated us. I slowed down initially, hoping in futility that he'd pass us, but no luck. I sped way up. He caught up and once again stayed way too close. Unfortunately, the interstate was quiet on our side. I had no choice but to keep going. My friend was very angry and ready to fight if necessary, but I wanted no part of meeting this guy face to face, especially with my birthday boy in the back seat. I just kept going and prayed not to get a flat tire. At one point, I got scared enough to lay on the horn while driving, hoping the noise would dissuade him. It worked. He pulled over on the shoulder and I saw his headlights turn off. I was relieved at first, but we found it odd that he killed the lights. After that, we sped up and I was flying for home. The sooner, the better. About 15 minutes passed in blissful uneventfulness. We talked about how scary that whole ordeal was and eventually started to feel relieved to put it all behind us. Literally. We were about 25 minutes from home and there were a couple of vehicles here and there, which made us feel less alone on the road. At one point, when the cars thinned out and we were once again alone on the road, something happened that I couldn't believe. Right next to us, and slightly behind us, headlights, bright, burst on. He had been following us that whole time with his lights off, staying carefully behind us and waiting for his chance to scare and surprise us. I almost started crying, but at this point I was too angry. This guy had been following us for an hour now. Far ahead of us, I saw the taillights of a semi. I sped up quickly with a stranger in the car next to me trying to pace us in the fast lane. I think he realized that I was trying to catch up with the semi. So for the first time in this insane chase, he did something truly dangerous. He swerved at my rear panel, a pit maneuver, trying to push us off the road. I sped ahead and missed him, clipping me by inches. I finally reached the semi-driver and got close, hugging the back of his truck as much as I dared and leaving no room for the jerk to cut me off. We went this way for a little while, finally, and I truly believe this semi-driver knew something was wrong. Because after so long of seeing this crazy driver swerving at me and trying to get in front of me as I would not let him over, the semi-driver did something I will forever appreciate him for. He swerved over into the fast lane and dangerously cut off the stranger's car and then tapped his brakes. I took it as my cue to speed ahead from the slow lane and try to lose this creep. I sped up to 85, 90. My hometown was straight ahead. I took a sharp left on the back street that led to the main road and stopped in a busy, well-lit gas station. Luckily, there was a cop there. My friend got out and explained the whole situation to the officer, and he called for other cars to search for this guy. We left the gas station after calling a friend to follow me to a parking lot where I stowed my car overnight because I did not want that guy to possibly find out my house by recognizing my car. I watched my back for some time after that. I always notice that make and model of car in white if I see it on the streets. Thank goodness we got away. Now, the most bothersome thing about this story is that the small town where this took place happens to be home to one of the biggest mental health asylums in the Midwest. This thought has kept me awake more than one night, and I still check my papers for stories of any possible escapees. I decided to share this, if just a stark reminder to never open the door when you're alone, unless you see or hear who it is and know exactly who they are. Even if they seem like a harmless door-to-door salesman or whatever. This happened to my mom a long time ago, when I was in kindergarten or just before. I actually totally forgot about it, despite it being the most terrifying moment of my childhood. Until one day, my mom mentioned it to an older sibling who wasn't there at the time, saying that's why she always tells us to never open the door for strangers unless our mom or dad are home, not even a bit to talk to them. One day, while me, my younger sister, and my mom were at home, some man came knocking on the door. At this house, the door had no windows or peeping hole, and it wasn't easy to see who was there. This wasn't a bad neighborhood at all, smack down in the middle class, but not bad. My mom's very reserved and modest, though, and didn't want to be facing a strange man without my father home, so she asked, without opening the door, who it was. He said he was by to do some repairs. At this point, my mom, knowing something was off, got afraid and just kept quiet. Nothing was wrong with the house, and we weren't expecting any type of repairs. My father wouldn't even have someone come by like this when it was just my mom and us kids at home. He kept knocking, though, eventually more violently. My mom was visibly upset and afraid, signaling for us to keep quiet. When he started to try to turn the handle and push open the door, I finally understood that this man was trying to get inside and hurt my mom for some reason. I got a knife from the kitchen and stood there, ready and deathly afraid. While he was trying to get in and yelling to let him inside, he even said, "I know your husband's not home." So, evidently, he'd been watching our house for some time. This lasted for a while, maybe 15 to 30 minutes. I just remember wondering what we did that angered him so much, and being utterly terrified that he'd get inside. Eventually, thank God, he gave up and left. Of course, my mom called the police, but by the time they'd arrived, he'd already left. They did eventually catch the guy. IIRC, from what my mom was saying many years later. It turned out he was a rapist who had just been out of jail or something. Now I know why I have recurring nightmares so bad I wake up drenched in sweat of someone trying to get through the front door. Anyway, people, ladies especially, please never, ever open the door, no matter how safe it seems.